I'm going to show how to can dill pickles. This was my Grandma Crockett's pickle recipe. Always use fresh produce when available. I like to grow pickling cucumbers such as National Picklers and Boston Picklers. Pick the cucumbers before they get too big and seedy. You'll also need fresh dill. Cut several dill heads before they go to seed. I use 2 dill heads per jar. These can also be frozen and used later as well. Next, you will need to make pickling brine. The following is the recipe for 7 quarts. I'm using pickling salt, minced garlic from a jar, apple cider vinegar, and water. You may also want to use pickle crisp granules. I've been using these lately, and it really seems to make a difference. Next, rinse the dill heads well in cold water and set them aside. Then wash the cucumbers and cut off the bloom end and the stems. Once all the cucumbers have been trimmed, rinse well and allow to drain. Next, fill a water bath canner about 2/3 full of hot water and set on the stove. Now, organize the canning station. Here's how I organize mine. Now, remove the jar rack from the water bath and cover. Turn the burner on in order to bring the water bath to a boil. While the water is being heated, add the following brine ingredients to a pot. 12 cups of hot water, 4 cups of cider vinegar, and 1 cup of pickling salt. Stir the brine until the salt has been dissolved. Continue to stir as you heat it to a boil. In the meantime, prepare the cucumbers for canning. I like to cut some into spears and have different lengths. These are nice for filling up the spaces in between the whole cucumbers when packing them into the jars. Gather together at the canning station the cucumbers, dill heads, pickle granules, and the minced garlic. Then set up the jar filling station with the hot sterile quart jars. Jars can be sterilized by boiling, or my preferred method is to use the sterilize option on my dishwasher. Next, add 1 teaspoon of minced garlic to each quart jar. Then add 1/4 teaspoon of pickle crisp granules to each jar. Begin packing the jars with cucumbers. Put whole cucumbers in first, and then the dill heads in at random. Once again, I like to use 2 dill heads per jar. Use the spears and small pieces to fill in the spaces between the whole cucumbers. After the jar has been packed full, inspect to make sure the contents are below the threads on the jar. This will allow a good headspace. Next, with the aid of a canning funnel, ladle in the hot brine. Make sure the salt has been completely dissolved before doing this. Carefully fill the jar, making sure the contents are completely submerged. Also, make sure to leave a headspace at the top of the jar. Wipe the rim dry with a clean cloth and select a hot lid from the simmering pot. Note, some brands don't require simmering. Simply follow the instructions on your particular brand of lids. Next, install the lid on top of the jar in this manner. Then, secure into place using a ring. Make sure you do not over-tighten. Using jar lifters, transfer to a raised rack in the water bath canner. Repeat this process until the rack is full. Then lower the jars into the water bath, cover, and boil for 10 minutes. Once the timer ends, transfer the jar to a towel and allow them to cool for 12 to 24 hours. For maximum flavor, allow the pickles to sit for at least 3 months before consuming.